Good evening, everyone. It's May 3rd, 2024. Today I want to talk about something that I was at a meeting on the homeless the other day, and there's a lot to talk about, but there's one point that really kind of hit home for me that reminded me of my past. They started talking about the rent evictions, and some of these rent evictions, I've seen it even on TV, are definitely affecting seniors who've been in their homes for years and years and years. And they're being forced out of their homes if they've been there maybe 15, 20 years, so, some of them. And some of these are also women who are also, they've lost their spouse, whatever. They're single women now living alone, and it's going to affect them terribly. It's just as what I've been seeing when you talk about domestic abuse, and my having been married for a long time, and in my particular case, I don't talk much yet about my second husband, but we were together for probably just over 34 years and married nearly 30 years when our marriage broke up, and that was an extremely abusive marriage, and there was 5 children involved, so it was complicated situation that happened with him. But I wanted to talk about what happened to me. And the interesting thing at that meeting was I know Julie and I have also talked about Cornerstone. That's where we met. And this is a story that I wanted to tell everyone about Cornerstone and why it's so important to me, from 2010 when I met Julie. And I was just about, and our marriage broke up, and what ended up happening was it was rather a rough situation. He got arrested, basically. I was told I could stay in the house, not the matrimonial home, of course. My son and my daughter-in-law lived next door, and I had a son still living with us at the time. And he ended up, to get back in the house, because the house was all in his name, he signed a rental agreement with my son and my daughter-in-law, who were living in an apartment next door, to rent the house. So he came through, and he had them come into the house, and they were coming in and out with my son's key. I couldn't sleep with his arrest, what was going on. I was just exhausted. I was forced out of the house, literally. And it was simple that I wasn't even shown the rental agreement even at the time. But I was told that I had to leave, and I was told I had to sign this stuff, and it was just a piece of paper, and I was under duress at the time, and of course I signed everything under duress at the time, and where he was literally not to take his pension, and I was out of the house, and they forced me to go through the house and pick out things that I wanted, so there was a lot of stuff that I didn't even get a chance to go through the house, and a lot of sentimental things, of course, that meant a lot to me. So I was put in a really bad position, and then what happened was all of a sudden they told me, well, you'll have to call up a shelter and get yourself placed in a shelter. Of course, I'm just sitting there, I'm in total shock, and then my son calls up the shelter and tells them, well, I'm mentally incompetent and I'm unable to look after myself. So they arranged for me to go to the shelter. This turned out to be the Cornerstone shelter. And on the drive there, I was bluntly told that I was lucky enough that they loved me enough to put me in a shelter and not out on the streets. And then they gave me a cane and told me, or at least my son did as I opened the door to leave, that I might need this cane. And of course, this was just 3 days before my 57th birthday. So what I want to talk about today is the seniors that are ending up on our streets as well, between the rent evictions. And this is happening to seniors like that. Abuse, where I'm seeing older women, such as Carol, and with possibly dementia, as I've talked about her in previous videos and that. And when I was at the meeting the other day, I actually ran into someone from the Cornerstone shelter. And in one of my previous videos, I mentioned too that they were moving to a new place at the beginning of May, which they've pretty much moved into right now. So I told a woman my story, how much I appreciated what Cornerstone did at that time, because it was really functioning really well back in 2010. And I said, well, what are they going to do now? Because the shelter they just left is now vacant. And she said, well, we don't own it. The city owns that old shelter. Now, it's an old house. I know there was some problems, but I see something that I feel would be of great advantage is if instead of putting all these women in the shelters that we have, the seniors, and from, say, 55 plus, because we're considered seniors from 55 plus, even though we don't get our pensions till we hit 65 years of age. For me, coming out of the situation that I just come out of, I was in shock. As I explained to the woman at the time, that for the first 2 weeks I was in the shelter, I was just walking around in a daze. I had no sleep for so long that the first thing I did was all I could do. And I was so grateful that I could sleep for the first 2 weeks, as well as just get fed until I got myself back into my head space again, and my body was just so exhausted I couldn't do anything. So after that, I got up on my feet after a couple of weeks. I was able to put myself together. I started working with the social workers. I had to find out what I had to do, like where's legal aid, give me a phone number. Oh, well, I'm going to have to go to welfare. What's the process to do that, and so on and so on and so forth. So by then, I was able to, I went out and got a briefcase for myself for the paperwork, and I got a cell phone, my first cell phone for myself to be able to do all the stuff that I needed and get a lawyer and everything. And that was a blessing to be able to do that. And know that in a sense, because of the way they ran the shelter, it was a women's shelter, of course. And I had 2 other roommates, as I've described in other previous videos. So there was 3 of us sharing a room. And we just had our beds and a suitcase or bags underneath our beds for our belongings. But it was a really good situation because they had everything there at the shelter. It was really, and I can understand why they had to move because it was so cramped. But basically, we had the rooms. We knew we had to be in by, I think it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night. We had a curfew, which we, those who followed the rules and regulations, and we respected each other. We were supposed to be respecting the building, which of course, I've seen other videos with between the pandemic and everything that's happened now, and the drugs going in has caused so much chaos from what I've seen. But when I was there, it was like you got up and somebody would drop some donuts off or something, so you'd be able to get donuts and a cup of coffee in the mornings, because we had like a little lounge area, and then we had a place where it was like a little dining room that we had, plus we had a kitchen where we had a cook that cooked during lunch hour and definitely during supper time. So it was really good, because then if I would go out in the mornings, try and do my stuff that I had to do in the mornings, I get back at noon hour, be able to eat, have something to eat, and then I'd be able to go and rest for the rest of the afternoon, and then have supper, and then be able to get rested for whatever I had to do for the next day. So this was really good, and this is what seniors need. We're definitely not into the drug scene. We're not usually into the bar scene or parties or anything like this, like the young people are. So we need a special place to be. So there's a lot that I can really push forward to, and I'm really hoping that this could be possibly what we could use the shelter for, if the city could just clean up the shelter and bring in the senior women who need some kind of stability, because most of them, if they're married for long enough, they haven't been out in jobs, getting a job. They might have to figure out how to get a job. If they can't get a job, they may have to wait for housing that's not yet built. Hopefully we'll have it soon. But I think it would be a wonderful idea. I've talked to a couple of friends about it, and they think that would be a great idea for the city to do this for the seniors, senior women, especially over 50, and just help us out and give us a rest and give us the respect that we deserve coming out of abusive situations and that. and just have it as a women's shelter again for abused women, as well as women who are, like I said, coming out of abusive relationships, or some of these seniors that are being rent evicted right now. So this has been my suggestion, and I don't want to keep it too long today, but I just wanted to bring this up, and I think this would be one way of establishing something and helping temporarily to try and hang on to that building as is for another, even if we have to do it for another 3 and 4 years till we get more of the social housing built so we can start moving people in better places. But I don't want to keep it long today, any longer than I have to. So everyone, I think about it. Love to hear what someone's idea about that would be from anyone. So take care, be safe, have a great day, and be aware of your surroundings, and we'll talk again soon. And bye-bye.